Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a reading wrap-up on all 13 books that I read in the month of August. So if you're interested in seeing what I read, my thoughts, my rating, then just keep on watching. We have quite the mixed bag to talk about, and I find it just easiest to go in the order in which I read these books. So the first book I finished in August, which I had a late start. I didn't finish a book until August 8th. That's kind of crazy. And this was a 72-page horror graphic novel. I read When I Arrived at the Castle by Emily Carroll. This is a queer erotic horror with gruesome, stunning artwork. A humanoid cat creature arrives at a castle with the goal to kill the countess who resides there. I was left feeling both unsettled and confused. I wish the storyline was fleshed out a bit more. It probably could have been a bit longer. I gave this 4 stars. I can enjoy some ambiguity in my books, but this storyline just felt lacking. It would be like a 5-star based on artwork alone, but like a 2.5-star based on the plot line or the story of the book. Like, I just didn't completely work for me. Another disappointing read was Court of Claws by Briar Bolin. This is the second book in the Blood of Fae series that I am buddy reading with book bestie Sam. We both really enjoyed the first book in this series, and I gave the second book 2 stars. This is a fantasy romance series that is an Arthurian retelling, but our main character, Morgan, doesn't even feel like the same character in the second book. She is insufferably immature and hot and cold with our MMC for literally no reason. Trying to talk about a second book in a series with no spoilers, there were trials of a sort in the second book, and they were pretty inventive and dark. But the stakes didn't truly feel as high as they needed to because the rest of the book felt so YA and immature, and then we're thrown into these really dark trials, but then there's breaks between each trial in which we're back to that immature part. I don't know. The tone of this book did not flow. I then did 2 5-star rereads, which I really needed to avoid a book slump. So first I listened to The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes as a refresher because it had been many years since I read this book and I never continued the series previously. It was 5 stars the first time, 5 stars the second time. This is a book that keeps you guessing. The mystery, the puzzles, it was just so much fun. I really enjoy this book a lot. We're following Avery Grahams, who is a struggling teen, and she's just trying to survive and finish high school when she gets a very surprise inheritance from a billionaire. He leaves his entire large family out of the will and gives all of his billions of dollars, his properties, his companies to Avery Grahams, who does not know who this man is. So we're following the mystery of why was she left the inheritance, but then the billionaire loves games. He loves puzzles. So there is a bit of a scavenger hunt and mysteries to solve. She needs to live in this house with all of his family members for a year, and I don't know. It keeps you guessing. The plot is very fast moving, and I just had so much fun with it. I gave it 5 stars again. The second book I reread and gave 5 stars for the second time is Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. Once again, it had been many years since I read this, and I don't know why I never continued on with this series. This is an adult fantasy book in which we are following Mia Corvair, who is out for revenge. The politicians at large ruined her family, killed her father, and she has made it her mission to pay them back. But to do so, she needs to become a highly trained assassin because all of these men who wronged her are very highly protected. Nobody is just going to walk up to them and do them harm. So she heads to this brutal assassin school, and when I picked this up the first time many years ago, I was under the impression this is YA. I would not call this YA. There were parts in here that turned my stomach. They were so brutal. I was completely enthralled with the story, even the second time reading it, where I knew where it was going but kind of forgot a lot of the little details. This book does have footnotes, which I know a lot of people hate, and I did not enjoy them the first time I read it, but the second time I did enjoy it. Some of them have a bit more of a comedic element to them. Others are like expanding on the world and the history that really just makes this world that J. Kristoff has created very expansive and interesting to me. So I'm really looking forward to continuing this, hopefully soon. You will be seeing this in a reading vlog soon. I read Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Search Part 1. This is a graphic novel that begins after the anime show, I believe. We are searching for Zuko's mother, and based on the back, I'm pretty sure you're supposed to also watch The Legend of Korra, so I'm not really going to talk about anything. I don't think I watched The Legend of Korra, to be honest, but I do love Avatar: The Last Airbender, and this 3-part graphic novel series is trying to wrap up a loose end that I think was left fans questioning at the end of the series. So this was cute. I gave it 4 stars. I'll elaborate more on it in the reading vlog you're going to see, so it was a quick read. Sam and I read Satan's Affair by H.D. Carlton. This is kind of like the prequel to the cat and mouse duet. Our main character, Sybil, is that how you pronounce her name? I'm not even sure, is one of the most unhinged characters I have ever read from before. This is described as a dark romance. However, I would more call it an erotic horror. Oh my gosh. I was sick to my stomach reading most of this book. It is truly horrific. However, I couldn't look away. And the reason I also don't really consider this to be a romance is there's not really a romance. There's sex, but there's not. I'm saying this is an erotic horror and I'm sticking to it. There's no romance in here, in my opinion. The writing is so descriptive. I could picture everything in my mind like a movie, which was honestly quite unfortunate because of how brutal and horrific this book was. It was playing right in front of my eyes. I did give this 4 stars. I was a bit disappointed by For the Wolf by Hannah Witten. I have loved Belladonna, One Dark Window, and I really wanted more YA gothic fantasy, and I had this on my shelves and I thought that would be perfect. This says the first daughter is for the throne, the second daughter is for the wolf. This is a bit of a fairy tale mashup, like Little Red Riding Hood, Beauty and the Beast. I think there's a bit of a Snow White scene in here. I don't want to give any spoilers away. We have a sentient gothic forest, nature and foresty based magic. On paper, this should have been a new favorite for me. But I really found myself feeling removed from the story. It felt very surface level. I couldn't get immersed. I didn't have enough detail. I felt like something in the plot, in the world building, was really lacking. I really loved the portrayal of a sisterly relationship, and I did really enjoy the romance, but I didn't understand why certain things were happening, how we got from the before of this book to where we are here. Like, it almost feels like maybe it needed a little novella prequel situation. I'm not sure. Or maybe it just wasn't fleshed out enough at the beginning of this story. I ended up giving this 3 stars. A lot of the side characters really blended together for me. They weren't distinct enough, yet there were many of them that played different roles, so I ended up just being confused. I don't know if it was me or the book. I did have a sneaky look at Goodreads on other people's reviews, and I'm thinking maybe it wasn't just me. I don't know. This disappointed me because it should have been a new favorite, as I've already said. But I'm going to try, it's just a duology, I'm going to try the second book, but I might end up unhauling this. You guys will be proud of me. I finally read The Serpent and the Wings of Night. I gave this 4.5 stars. This is what I love about fantasy romance. I've been reading a ton of romantasy the last few months, and not that I'm feeling burnt out on the genre, but I'm finding a lot of mid books, and it's had me questioning, like, am I sure fantasy romance is my favorite genre? Because right now it's not feeling that way. And then I read this and I'm like, oh yeah, fantasy romance is my favorite. When we have really good world building, great fleshed out characters, a super fun plot, and a romance that you can root for. This is also brutal and bloody. Apparently I have a type. I need my stakes to be high, I have discovered. The trials were inventive in here, which I've been reading a lot of books with trials, so sometimes they can kind of feel same. I didn't feel that way in here. I felt like this was a fresh take on a vampire story, which we've seen for decades, honestly. I really love this. I can't wait to continue with this series. I'm going to read 6 Scorched Roses next, I believe. Another book you'll be seeing in a vlog soon. I'm still continuing on with the series of unfortunate events. This is book 4, The Miserable Mill. I gave it 3 stars, my least favorite so far. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be worth trudging through that giant series. I read The Fiance Farce by Alexandria Bellafleur. This is a sapphic romance, and we are following Tansy, who is working in her family's bookstore. However, her father has just passed away and her stepmother is wanting to sell the bookstore for a profit. And we're also following Gemma, who is kind of like an heiress to a very popular publishing house. She is very wealthy, but she's kind of the outcast to her family. But when her grandfather dies, he leaves her his company, bypassing everyone who thought they would be in succession for this empire. But there is a caveat to her getting the family's fortune and the businesses to run. She has to be married within the year, and they have a bit of a sapphic marriage of convenience. I ended up giving this 3 stars. It was cute, but it felt pretty long and meandering, and also very telling. I read 115-ish pages via audiobook and then set it down for many weeks before picking it up to continue. It is almost 400 pages long, and I just feel like more needed to happen within those 400 pages, or we should have shortened it up a bit. Next, I read Off to the Races by Elsie Silver with book bestie Sam, of course. This is the first book in the Gold Rush Ranch series. I've already read the entire Chestnut Springs series, but this comes before that, and this is set on a thoroughbred racing farm. And we are following horse trainer Billy, who is very young, but is showing great promise in the industry, and people are constantly underestimating her because she's young, she's fiery, she's beautiful, but she's getting results on the racetrack, but still the older men especially just won't take her seriously. And we're also following Vaughn, who recently lost his grandfather and is now in control of the farm and also a separate entity. And he, while growing up on the farm, has really taken the more business side, the, wearing suits, schmoozing investors, that sort of thing. And he's just struggling with grief and misogyny. He also didn't want to hire Billy to be his horse trainer. His farm really needs a win. They need some winning horses or it's going to go under. And Billy is the right girl for the job. However, with a name like Billy, or a nickname like Billy, I should say, he assumed when he wanted to interview that this was a man, and when a woman shows up, he hired her so he can keep looking at her sweet ass. And I was like, I am going to hate this man. But he does have some character growth, which I'm pleased with, but he had to work for it, because at the beginning of this book, I was like, this man is so pig-headed. I hate him. But I ended up giving this 4 stars. So things turned around. I love Billy. She's very spicy. She's a smart ass. She can give as well as she can take. This was fun, and it had a bit of nostalgic to me because this was set at more of a horse farm, which is what I grew up on, versus the Chestnut Springs series being like a cattle ranch. So I think I'm really gonna enjoy the Gold Rush Ranch series. We are almost done. My voice is getting a little beat up. This was a lot of books. This might be the most books I've ever read in a month. I'm not quite sure. I read Someone We Know by Sherry Lapina. This is a thriller set in a suburb. And I've discovered I really like thrillers like this. They're domestic, and not in like a domestic thriller like husband and wife who did it sort of thing, but domestic in that we're in the suburb, everyone's going about their lives. We have a lot of children in the mix, married couples, neighbors. So-and-so can see into the window across the street of this other person's house. Everyone has this drama. We have some teenage characters in here that are just being stupid teenagers, getting into trouble, but a woman ends up missing and is later found in the trunk of a car. And then secrets start to unfold. They were newer to the neighborhood. Everyone seemed to like them. At least the men seemed to like the wife. Is the husband the one that did it? Because we always think the husband did it. Or do all of these nosy neighbors have some secrets of their own? People are entangled. So-and-so knows this person does this. It was just so much drama. I was just thoroughly entertained. I read it very quickly. I ended up giving this 3.25 because it is predictable. I figured out the twist pretty early on, but it was still an enjoyable read. Not one I would reread though. And then I finished off the month with reading the second book in the Inheritance Games, the Hawthorne Legacy. I read this one on audiobook as well since the first one went so well for me, but I gave this one 4 stars instead of 5 stars. I didn't enjoy it as much as the first book. There are more puzzles and mysteries to be figured out. I'm sure that's going to continue on throughout the series. It's fun. It's definitely YA, but the typical YA love triangle is so heavy-handed, especially in the second book. At least in the first book, like, we were starting to get to know our characters, and of course in YA books there's often a love triangle, but in the second book I feel like it was just way overdone and it dampened my enjoyment a bit. But overall it was still fun, so I gave it 4 stars. But those were all of the books I read in the month of August. There were so many of them. I had such a fantastic reading month. I read so much outside in nature, and it was amazing. We didn't have a ton of wins. The best book I read besides rereads was A Serpent and the Wings of Night, but that is fine. We'll have some unhauls going on, make some room on the shelf, which is always good. I'm going to stop rambling. Let me know in the comments below your best book from the month of August. Give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!